Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you. One of the monikers that we talk about these days is common sense is not extinct. It might be on the endangered species list, but it's not extinct. And so we talk about people and life stories here on our show and how people got to where they're at, because success is not something that just falls out of the sky. So if you're a brand new listener, thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you. And if you are a new listener, we want to thank you because of your listenership and also our great guests like today. I think it's going to be a riveting and great story and great personal person who has overcome. We have cracked the top 10 fastest growing podcasts in the world. And that's amazing because there's almost 2 million podcasts in the Apple Podcast, which is the biggest platform. Get the house cleaning out of the way. If you do not like the platform you're on today, that's okay. There's 23 others, so find one you love. You can find us on all the social media platforms, Rex Andrews Show. And then also, please stop by the website, because at the website, we have information about all of our guests, previous, upcoming. Now, we're going to talk about some interesting things today, but we won't cover it all about our guests. So we'll have links there. You can follow up. You can listen to the podcast again. You can download whatever you want to do. It's an exciting platform. So stop by. We've got tons of guests there. So all of our previous are current and then future up and coming. All right. So one last thing, thank you to our audience. We are now listened to in 32 countries on 6 continents. And if we could figure out a way to market to the penguins in Antarctica, we'd have that 7th. But I don't know if I can afford giving all the penguins smartphones or mobile devices. And where would they charge them? That's the next question. So anyway, all right, today's guest is amazing. This is going to be a great story. Glad to have her here, coming to us from South Africa. Well, it's amazing. Seriously over the pond for us today because I'm outside of Boulder, Colorado. But let me give you a few monikers on who she is. She's a mom, okay? And, that's one of the most important titles anybody can have. She's also a sister, and it sounds like she's a pretty doggone sister because she's an aunt, but she's not just a regular old aunt. I've heard that she is a very cool aunt. And so she's kicking tail in that area. She is by trade. She's been a professional social worker, helps people in that place. She's all certified, know that. Currently, she does a lot of HR consulting. So she understands people and helps organizations manage their people. She is an overcomer, and that's going to be a lot about our story today because she's done some amazing things in her life to overcome a certain situation. And then also, too, she's a soon-to-be podcaster. So I'm very proud and very honored to have Virginia Solomons on the show today. Virginia, how are you?
I am well, Rex. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am really excited to be here.
Fantastic. Now, I know you're in South Africa, but what part are you in? I've only been to Johannesburg. So what part of South Africa are you in?
I'm in Port Elizabeth, which is the Eastern Cape province of our country, yes.
Fantastic. How are things today in Port Elizabeth?
Weather's good, but we'll be moving into autumn. You call it fall.
Yeah.
Yes. It's starting to become darker quick, and it's starting to become a bit chilly. But other than that, today's weather was quite good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so Virginia, you've listened to some of the shows. You understand how we operate. The show is all about life stories. Success does not fall out of the sky, okay, on people. So, and a lot of times the things we endure form who we are today. And I know that you have that because you have some severe case of fortitude to overcome some stuff. We don't call you a survivor. We call you an overcomer. But before we get to that part of the story, we'd like to real quick look back in time. We want to know these types of things, like we do want to know where you were born, where you went to school and were raised, so where you grew up, the interests that you had as a kid, so whether it was sports or drama, or theater, computers, shoplifting, we don't care. Learn a little bit about your family. So do you have siblings? Obviously you do, because you are the cool aunt. And then how did your siblings survive your harassment as you were growing up as a kid? Okay, so all the dynamics of family. Want to know a little bit more about your parents, because our parents are huge influences. Sometimes parents can be super supportive and help us move along in a support mechanism, or they can motivate us because people don't want to be like their parents or some sort of circumstances there.
Yes.
So we'll learn about your education a little bit, and then we'll dive into your story about how you overcome some things. So let's go back in time, Virginia. Where were you born?
Rex, I was born in Cape Town, in Gugulethu, one of the townships. I was born the youngest of 8 kids.
Oh wow, big family.
So, yes. I've got 6 sisters and the world's most awesome brother. I only got one brother, and he is everything that I would ever want and need in a brother. So there's 8 of us. It's the six girls, and then it was him, and then me. So okay. I'm the youngest of the 8. Yes.
Wow.
I think my parents thought they'd try again. Maybe it's another boy. And then it was just me.
Well, I don't know if it's just you, but your parents are really good at making girls. That's for sure. Now, are you really close to your sisters and your family? Were you a close-knit family growing up? Because big families are awesome. I've got 5 kids myself. If you look at the wall of fame behind me here, I've got 5 kids, and I'm just a recent grandpa. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait. He turns a year old on Sunday, so excited to go see him.
Wow.
It's a wonderful aspect, a wonderful time of life. So tell us a little bit about your family life growing up with 8 kids.
Yes, Rex, you'll also hear from my story, but we are a very close-knit family. And I think the closeness came from my mom, with all the separation in South Africa. My mom was raised as a colored, which is she was raised as a colored. However, she then married my dad, who was a black man. And they couldn't live where her parents were living and her siblings. So they moved to the township where the black people in South Africa live.
Okay.
And my brother and I were born there. And that in itself created a divide between us and my mom's family. My dad is from Mozambique, so we don't really know his family. We had never had the opportunity to go that side, and we were just a close-knit family because it was just us.
Okay.
And that's how close we were. We just grew up very close. My mom made sure that our relations are good. We love each other. My dad died when I was 12.
Okay.
So he's been gone for many years. So my mom had to raise us all on her own. A very, very strong woman, very wise. She left school at an early age. So the wisdom that she has is not from books, but it's godly wisdom.
Okay.
And that's how she raised us. Yes, she raised us in church and to love God and to just be good people. So sure. We are really, we're very close. Yeah.
Now, trying to calculate back in time. When you grew up, was that in the middle of apartheid?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was.
That must have been an interesting
I'm giving my age away here, hey?
Yeah. So that must have been an interesting time to grow up in South Africa with all that going on, because that's chaos.
Very, very interesting.
Very, very interesting. We might have to have you come back and talk about that, because that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother show. Okay. So growing up, what type of interests did you have growing up? You were into sports, theater, dance, computers, shoplifting, anything. What were you spending your spare time on as a kid, and what interests?
Growing up, especially in the township, the one thing that stood us in good stead was growing up in the township. We obviously had to speak Xhosa. It's the language in the township. And my mom spoke Afrikaans, so she didn't speak the language in the township. And my dad, because he was from Mozambique, he didn't know the language properly, so we spoke English. So we grew up speaking 3 languages from a very, very young age. I loved listening to the radio with my dad. There was always it was called Consider Your Verdict. It would be court cases, and he would then, and there would be a break, and then he would ask us, what do you think? Is it guilty or is it not guilty? And I was about 7, 8 years old, and I used to enjoy that. And funny enough, my sister who used to listen to that with me, she studied law, so she is in the legal field. And I only after after social work and I ventured into human resources, the labor law side of things, I really, really love. And I think it's what my dad installed all the years back then. I loved playing in the street, playing with the other kids. As a child, also primary school, I started playing netball. Yeah, and I just love music. I love stories, listening to stories. Yeah, that was what I used to love as a child. Yes.
So
and reading, of course, reading as well.
Of course, yeah. Back to one quick question. So your mom spoke Afrikaans, okay? You were speaking English growing up, and your dad from Mozambique, what was he speaking?
He was speaking Shangaan and Portuguese.
Okay.
Yeah. Those were the major languages he spoke, but he also spoke the dialects in Mozambique.
Okay, fantastic. Wow, what a diverse communication set of platforms in your family.
Yes, yes.
You probably had to know a lot about karma and a lot about, I guess, intent of conversation, because not everything translates, when we speak different languages.
Yes, not everything translates. That's true. Sometimes there's some saying in Afrikaans that you just cannot translate to another language. The same with Xhosa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So yeah, what an interesting. I know lots of families who will have their kids speak another language like Chinese and English, or Spanish and English and stuff. And so there's a lot of things that don't translate, and it's really funny when the kids are speaking one language and the parents are speaking a different. I have friends that have a family where the parents just speak English and the kids can speak Chinese, Mandarin, and also English. So when the kids want to talk behind their parents' back, they talk in Chinese.
We used to do that with our parents as well.
Yeah. So you play that game. Yeah, we're gonna talk about them, and they're not gonna know. So that's fantastic. So talk a little bit about your education real quick. You went to primary, obviously, and after secondary, did you go on to college then?
Yes. Primary school, Rex, I didn't go to school in the township.
Okay.
I went to school outside of the township, which was if I can, a sort of a better level of education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I went to school, primary school and also high school. I changed my primary school once when we moved after my dad passed away. And then I went to a high school, and then for 1 year, I went to high school in Johannesburg.
Okay.
Because my sister lived there, and they were going to pay for plastic surgery for me. And I was just there for the year, but at that time, I had already decided I've had enough of plastic surgery. And then I went back to the same high school to go and finish where I was.
Okay, fantastic.
So after high school, I went to university and studied social work.
Social work, okay, fantastic. All right, so I want to hopscotch over to one of your stories, okay? You have a story of overcoming, and so there was a very tragic accident that took place in your life, and so I'd like you to tell us that story.
Okay, as a teeny weeny toddler, I was 22 months old. My sisters were busy making a fire outside. and there was playing with spirits, and the spirits fell on me. The last time they checked, I was inside the house and asleep, and so they didn't know that I had joined them. They were burning the rubbish. So they never realized that I quietly had crept up, and I was also wanting to see what's going on. And they were playing with methylated spirits, and that it's a very flammable a form of spirits, and a lot of it fell on me. And when the fire ignited, I caught a light as well.
Oh my goodness.
And it's only when I caught a light that they realized that I was actually there with them.
Oh. Now, how old were you again? You were
22 months old.
22 months old. Wow.
Yes.
So not even quite 2 years old. So you're outside, they're burning the rubbish, got a fire going. They don't know you're there. They spill the spirits on you, right? And then the fire erupts and you catch fire, okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Did they jump to your aid? Did they try to roll you around, or what happened next? I mean, that's, I can't even imagine being 22 months old and being on fire.
Yes. One sister in particular, she jumped and she grabbed me, and she unfortunately also have some scars, but it's not as obvious as mine, because it's under clothes.
Uh-huh.
She grabbed me. Apparently there was a bath of dirty water standing outside, and that's where they dunked me in the water. Obviously they all had the fright of their lives, and they just did what they thought at the time was the best thing to do. Yes. Unfortunately, our parents went home. My mom was at work, my dad was at work, so it was just them.
Okay.
And I was then rushed to hospital, and I was in hospital. I think my parents couldn't see me for almost, I think, 2 months on end, because of the depth of the burn, and also the fear of any infection from the outside.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So the hospital became my second home.
Wow. Yeah. I can't imagine. 22 months old, you have this kind of trauma, and you can't even see your parents for 2 months. So you turn 2 without your parents by your side.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, with the burns that happened to you, where were you burnt? I know obviously you have some of those.
Mostly on my face.
Okay.
On my face, and on my arm, the one arm, and the bottom of the other arm towards my left hand.
Okay.
And then my dress got stuck on my abdomen. And then on my right, just above my right knee, I also have a burn patch there. And then the rest of my legs has just been from skin graft, where they took skin off to put on my face and to put everywhere else.
Okay, so I'm assuming these were probably second and third degree burns. How severe?
3rd-degree burns.
Third degree burns.
Okay. 3rd-degree burns. Yes.
Oh, that's terrible. I mean, a little toddler essentially with 3rd-degree burns. As a father, oh man, that just gets me. You know, I've been very, very blessed. All of my children have so far to date, knock on wood, have been very healthy and without those types of issues. And so, how many surgeries did you go through?
Rex, I was in hospital almost twice every single year until I was 14 years old.
Wow. So you had 12 years of surgeries.
Yeah.
Wow.
12 years of surgery in and out of hospital. That's why I used to call it my second home.
Your second home.
Yes.
Were you there did you have any years, did you have multiple surgeries, or were these just kind of a continuous thing, or was it once a
Yeah,
year you went in?
as when I was younger, Rex, there were multiple surgeries, but I think as like from the age of say 8, I think I would go in maybe twice a year, and then eventually just once a year.
Okay.
Yeah, until I was 14 years old. Yeah.
So if you have, it would probably be fair to say you had more than 20 surgeries, right?
Probably. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you have the severe injury, the pain of all of that, the emotional pain. But I'm assuming as a kid growing up, because of the disfigurement and the scars and those types of things, you probably experienced some scorn and struggles with that from people who didn't
I have.
understand. Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about that as a youth. What was that like when you were in school? Were you in primary and high school and stuff? What did you experience with that? Because, this doesn't happen to many people. Okay. If you look at statistics, I look back and I went to a high school that was a good sized high school. There were about 1,200 kids in it. My graduating class was 325 kids. I didn't have anybody that had that kind of injury. So what was it like for you?
It was quite painful, hurtful, being bullied, and especially as in primary school, being bullied, being called names, all sorts of names, hurtful names. So yeah, it was quite tough. But you know what, Rex? I survived each day because I had a family that just loved me. Like, they were my rock. They still are. They were my everything, all of them. They just, I could live the next day and endure whatever I had to endure because I had them.
Yeah.
And they really, yeah, I've been blessed with the family that I have. I really am. I couldn't have chose or asked for better family.
So your family really was a safe harbor. You go out in the world and you
Yes.
get the scorn and the teasing and the bullying and the name calling, but you were able to go home to a safe harbor. You grew up in church and with influence of faith and those types of things. Were there any pivot moments where you just said, I'm not going to keep this, not let this hold me down? Were there any times that you just made this decision? Because usually in life, when we experience a trauma like this, there's often these little pivot points that you just say, you know what, I
Yeah.
remember this point, and I'm not going to let this hold me down, or I'm not going to be defined by this, or I'm not going to be
Yeah.
identified for that. So were there any of those type of experiences?
There were, and there was the one that was just the turning point in my life. But before I get there, Rex, I was probably at the age of 9 or 10 when I understood the full story. And now what you must remember is that I've grown up with these siblings of mine, and this is the story that I hear, that it's like I look like this because of them. That's what any normal person would say. But they are my family,
Mm-hmm.
and I love them. And I think at that tender age, God had taught me or given me the gift of forgiveness.
Okay.
And it's a gift that I've carried with me throughout my life. People will do things to me and I forgive because I know that God can take care of it far better than I could ever do. So I didn't realize back then that I was actually I was given the gift of forgiveness. but I love all my siblings. I really love them. They love me unconditionally, and I am who I am today because of them. Standing out, I grew up and standing on the shoulders of giants. So pivotal points in my life, Rex, that I could not stand being stared at. I couldn't. Every time somebody had an opinion or labeled me, it's, you know, all those labels I took on. I took them on, and those labels become me. That is how I saw myself through the eyes of people and the things that they say. And I applied for, and I've always wanted to become a social worker. So I applied for a scholarship to study social work because the money that my mom was earning was never going to be able to send me to university. And I applied for the scholarship, and I told the one teacher that I'm applying for a scholarship from the government because I want to study social work. And he told me that the government doesn't give bursaries to social work, to any other field other than teaching. And I told him, I said, yes, sir, I hear what you're saying, but I want them to tell me that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to apply, and I will expect then a regret letter from them. And I applied, and they sent me forms to complete. And I showed it to him. And he said to me, no, you're wasting your time. I completed the forms, sent through all the documents, and they sent another letter. There were other documents that they needed. Send those off. And eventually they sent me a telegram back then to go for an interview with a social worker. So Rex, she asked me many questions, but the one question she asked me was a question that I lied about because I wanted the sponsorship, the
scholarship.
Yeah, the scholarship. And she asked me, are you a confident person? And at that stage, I was about 17. At that stage, my confidence was at an all-time low.
Sure.
And she said to me, if you are not a confident person, you won't be able to do social work. And I just couldn't hear that. And I said to her, yes, I'm very confident. So now I'm sitting just with her in this office, so I can be confident. And she completed, obviously, the documents, but when I walked out of her office, I just heard my mom's voice saying, if you tell lies, God is going to show up that lie. And when I left that building and I came and I got outside, Rex, I started living that lie. I realized I got onto a bus on my way home, and I went and I sat in the very last seat of the bus, which is something that I would never have done that I've never done before in my entire life. I would normally get onto a bus, and if the first two seats are taken, I would just turn around because I wouldn't want to lift my head and have everybody looking at me. And then that day, I went and I sat in the very last seat of the bus. What happened to me on that day, Rex, was when I, at the age of 14, when I had my last operation, it was on my neck. And when they took the bandages off, it looked very ugly. It looked ugly. I screamed when I saw it. And I asked the doctor, why didn't he leave me the way I was? And he said to me, you don't understand. You are beautiful. And these operations we are trying to just beautify you more. But when the wound is healed, you will see and realize how beautiful you are. I was 14 back then. I didn't believe a word he said.
Yeah.
And the day that I sat after that interview and I sat on that backseat of that bus, I heard his words as well. And that is the day that the U-turn came in my life. That is the day that I became fearless and life became limitless. I said that if you have a problem with the way I look, it is your problem.
That's your problem. Yeah, absolutely.
And not mine. And the sad part, Rex, is that so many people out there are walking around with baggage that is not meant to be theirs.
Sure.
And that's when I realized that that baggage was never mine to carry. And God will bring people into your life, and those people will shake you and shake that baggage off you. We just need to be obedient, and we just need to make to realize that he's talking to us all the time. And when I applied for that scholarship, I believe that that was divine orchestration from God, because that, had I listened to that teacher and I didn't apply, I probably would have been the same shy, feeling sorry for myself girl that I was back then. So that was the pivotal change that came in, that happened. And Rex, after that, there was no stopping me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit, because there's an element of this story that I didn't really realize, and I don't think most people would, is, when you have a tragic accident like this, we're often sort of the question of Lord, how did this happen to me? God, why me, right? This trauma. But you had an added element. It was caused by your family, the closest people to you on earth. Now, that is an element of forgiveness than accepting a fate, that we've been handed to by the Lord. The Lord hands us lots of things that we have to overcome. I think that's the main journey of life here, is we come and we are given challenges and we overcome them, and how we deal with them. But that's a really unique thing, because this wasn't just some sort of accident like a construction accident or a car accident or these other things. This was caused by your family.
Yeah.
And that's a really unique level of forgiveness, because, there were two paths probably at that time. You could forgive them, or you could hold that grudge. And unfortunately in life, there are a lot of people that hold grudges. There's a lot of people who get mad at God or mad at the Lord. And I don't care how anybody, whatever anybody's faith is, sometimes we get surrounded by that and we just don't forgive. But then there's also this element of being able to not only forgive, but to actually then accept it, your fate. And then, like that moment where you got on the bus, I mean, I bet that was extremely hard, because for you to walk to the back of that bus, and I'm sure it wasn't an empty bus, right?
It wasn't.
It was packed full of people, and you had to walk back to all of them. Now, what do we do when we get on a bus or a train or an airplane and the people are walking by? We look at them, right?
Yes.
Me, most of the time, I'm hoping and praying they don't sit by me, because I'm a big guy, I used to play football and stuff. And I'm like, man, I'd like to have a little more room here, And so, but you're looking at people, and I've learned how to put the scorn face on. So people won't sit next to me, kind of thing. It's like, oh, I don't want a middle seat person, kind of thing. So that must've been an incredible experience, walking past that. And then to get to the back and just say, you know what? I gotta use this as something that's positive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a great story. Let's fast forward a little bit. Okay. You had the emotional maturity and the self-awareness to realize if people were uncomfortable or felt scorn about your scars, okay, disfigurement, whatever you want to call it, that still happened today as an adult?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
Okay.
It does. Rex, I'm sometimes I got to a point where the word of God tells me that I am his masterpiece, that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that I'm the apple of his eye. It tells me all those things, and I believe those things. And he used that doctor to tell me that I was beautiful. And when people look at me at times, I forget that they're staring at the scars. And if they continue to stare, then I will realize, oh yes, they're looking at the scars, you know.
Yeah,
I am
it's something different. It's not something they see every day, right?
yes. I'm at a point. I got to a point where I just didn't care. You can look, your thoughts, your reaction, whatever you say, whatever you do, it just doesn't matter.
Doesn't
It
matter.
just doesn't matter anymore. I used to be, as a child, I didn't want to go places. I would want to be in a safe space, the routine, the normal, where people are used to me. And then when my dad passed away, we had to change schools, and that for me was very traumatic.
Because you got to start all over, right? A new group of
All
people.
over.
Yeah.
Start all over. The kids at this school was so all used to me. One of the reasons why I also say I've got the best brother in the world. When I was in grade 2, he came around with 2 friends, because I used to get home and I would be crying that the kids were mocking me and all of that. And he came around with his friends, 2 of his friends, and he said to me, point out all those kids that have been nasty to you. And I just walked with him and I just went pointing, and they would smack that one and do that one, that thing, and do this, and it stopped. It stopped. So I was at a school where people have gotten used to me, and now I had to start all over again. Fortunately, I got to a school where I had an angel of a teacher, and I still speak to her often, and she just made me feel at home. Yeah, it was difficult, but moving around for me was very traumatic. And then I went to go live with my sister in high school. And the reason why I went to go live with her was they were going to do plastic surgery for me. So I was excited. I'm going to come back and I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be looking all good. And I think it was all the doctor's surgeries that we went to that I said to her, no, I've had enough. I think this is it. I can't. And it also took me back to the operation and the surgery that I had the year before. And I knew the situation that I had with the doctor and the scar that I had. And I just said, no. So moving around and going to places was very traumatic for me. If you, people who know me now, Rex, won't believe it, because I travel all over the world. I go everywhere. If I have an opportunity to be on TV, I'll be on TV, and I just do everything. For me, it was almost like catch-up time for all the years that I've just wasted because I was too scared to be in the limelight. I didn't want to be seen. But yeah, my life changed.
So maybe an oddball question. Have there been times in your life where these scars actually really benefited you or put you in a special place that you could kind of have a launch point or have an advantage over people? I mean, we've talked through this point, up to this point, about some of the disadvantages and the struggles and the pain and the bullying and those types of things. Has there been a time of advantage?
I remember as a child, the one time when television was not that common everywhere, and we would pay to go and watch TV at somebody's house, and he had this big yard at the back, and he would charge people money to come in. He never charged me.
Oh, wow.
And I thought to myself, well, he either likes me or he feels sorry for me. So be that as it may, I'm going in for free.
Well, you got to take that, right?
Yes, my siblings had to pay, though I didn't have to pay. Where else could I've never thought of it that way. I just always thought from the outside there was nothing positive about it or advantages about it, but on the inside for me, I don't know, Rex, if I'm going to make sense, but on the inside for me it was an advantage, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Is that whenever I felt that I was disrespected because of the way I look, or I was looked down upon because of the way I looked, I would excel at whatever I do. At school, I excelled. I just felt that if you can't respect me for who I am, I will command respect because I am going to excel in whatever I do. And so that's why I'm saying that my scars propelled me, but it was all internal motivation. It besides my family and the good friends that I had as a child and as a teenager, my motivation came from the strength that God had given me. It was from inside. So in terms of advantages, I honestly can't think of where else my scars could have benefited me. Remember, I also grew up in the apartheid years, so that is now a question that I didn't even ever think about. I cannot say. Maybe my siblings and my parents would be able to say where, but from what I can remember, I cannot remember that my scars were sort of an advantage. The one thing that I remember as a child was when my mom would take me to the hospital and we would get on the bus, and people would say, shame, what happened to her? And my mom would just say, what is shame about my child? Yeah. There's nothing shame about my child. And that is how I grew up, that there was there's no shame about the way I look. So when I sat on that bus and I had done that interview, and the fact that I knew that my mom always said there's nothing shame about my child, all of that just in one go, I just turned my life around.
That's great. So you really didn't look back at it as an advantage, and maybe that's the first time probably anybody might have asked or talked to you about that. But
yes.
But let's be realistic at this point in time, okay? You speak all over the world. You're going to be a podcaster. You have the opportunity to get an audience because of it, right? I mean, you're telling a story. You're telling a story. Yeah. A story that very, very few people ever endure, okay? Now, I interview a lot of people all over the world. I've interviewed people on all 6 continents. And you have a compelling story that a lot of people want to hear because you did not take on victimology. You know, we see that in the cultures in the world today. Everybody plays the victim card and that kind of thing. And so perhaps this, you know, your situation, your scars, your story is some sort of an advantage because you get to open doors because of it. Now, see me, I've got a face for radio, okay? I don't have a story. Okay? I don't have a story, right? So if I walk down the street, I gotta prove a lot of other things to have anybody find that I'm anything interesting, right? I'm just a dupe, I'm just an average goober, kind of thing. But here you've transformed this, and it's not just the beauty inside, because you are a beautiful person. And what a paramount moment in your life for that doctor to say these things. But you didn't take on victimology. You stood up to this. You decided to motivate this. But at the same time, today, you get doors open because of it. So maybe that's a small advantage. And I am not discrediting the struggles you've been through, right? I believe, I can't imagine as a kid growing up and having that, because, let's face it, kids are rotten. They really are. They don't understand.
Yes,
They don't have any emotional maturity. Most of the time they don't, it's just something they don't know how to deal with. But you've really done something with it. And I think that's really interesting, because not everybody does. A lot of people would recoil, find a cave to hide in, some sort of metaphorical cave, and gone there. So I really applaud you, because you're letting something that is a physical thing open people up to the beautiful you. And I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
I really do.
Thank you. I can't take all the credit though. My family raised me to believe that I am destined for greatness in Christ. So that's how they raised me. My elder sister had bought me the stuff that you put on your desk, the desk where you put the 2 pens in. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, the pen holders on the desk.
Yeah. It's on a piece of marble.
Yep.
And the 2 pens are
each
in
end.
there.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was in grade 9 when she bought me that. And she said to me, one day you'll have your own office. And when I eventually had my own office, that is in my office.
Fantastic.
So that's just an example that I'm making in terms of how they raised me. They believed that I was destined for greatness. So I could, there is just no way that I could play the victim.
Yeah.
They didn't allow me to play the victim. And I didn't want to play the victim either.
Well, Virginia, I can say right now, just listening to your story and getting to know you today and meet you, the world needs more families like that. They really do. I think the challenge is, this is just my own soapbox, okay? And I'm only speaking for me, is a lot of the challenges that we face in this world today, where people are very shallow in a lot of their approach, it's because the breakdown of the family. It really is. And it's also the breakdown of people who, and again, I might take a lot of scorn for this, but people who don't have the Lord in their lives, and people don't have purpose, and people who aren't living a bigger existence than they are. Yeah. So I think that's just awesome what you've gone through. So tell me what you're up to today. Okay, so what are you working on? What are the things on the horizon? What's your big kahuna right now? What are the things that you're really working on?
The stuff that I do these days, I'm an HR consultant for an NGO, and then some other clients as well. And I joined the Professional Speakers Association last year, and I've grown so much since I've been there. I have been talking for years. I have been sharing my story for years. Sure. It's the first time that I'm venturing into a professional sort of role for it. I remember starting, and people were asking me, "So, how much do you charge when you speak?" I've just felt that, you know what, it's God's work. How can I be charging for God's work? Mm-hmm. And somebody was telling me, but if you do a course at church, you pay for that course, don't you? I said, yeah, I do. But I haven't started charging. But I've been grooming myself to become more of a professional speaker. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm an inspirational speaker. I don't think you can motivate anybody, you can just inspire them, and the motivation should come from themselves. And I do a lot of ministry work. COVID has put a dampen on that. Would do outreach with church, and we would go to the rural areas. I would present and facilitate courses at church. I'm busy now with a parenting course that I'm doing for foster mothers. Those are the things that I do. I do coaching. I do mentoring of students, mentoring of young professionals, coaching business people, and raising my 17-year-old that's still here with me, because the others have all left the nest.
Okay.
Yeah, and being a mom. Yeah, those are the things, and obviously finishing my book.
Okay. When do you think your book will be out?
I'm launching it on the 26th of June. The
Nice.
Reason for the 26th of June, it's a day after my mom's birthday.
Okay.
So we would like her to enjoy her birthday, and then honoring her, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be writing that book either.
Do you have a title for your book already, or have you not picked it yet?
It's called Scars That Propel.
Scars That Propel. Well, I can't wait to get my hands on that. I can't wait to get that. Will be interesting.
Yeah.
You've been a very gracious guest today in sharing your story, and I do find it inspiring. I try to get guests on that are inspiring, because whether it's struggles that are overcome, whether it's mental challenges, physical challenges, environmental challenges, it's great to see people that do things and are inspiring. So you've been a really good guest on, so I appreciate it. So I have one last question for you, okay? And I ask this of all my guests, okay? So you probably know what's coming, all right? So in this world, everybody has these bucket lists, the things I'm going to do before I depart from this earth, all right? So it can be all kinds of crazy things, inspiring, goals. But there's also an opposite of everything in the universe. I'm kind of a science guy and a lot of physics in my background and stuff. So for every polar, there's a negative, right? Positive, there's a negative. So there's a different list, okay? It's the opposite, things we're not going to ever do or don't have any inspiration to do that. Now that list rhymes with bucket and starts with an F, but I'm not going to say that, okay? So what might be on Virginia's F-it list? Now I'll give you a couple examples, all right? People who listen know this one. I'm never going to eat another sardine. I'm not going to open a can and look at something that looks like it's looking back at me, all right? I am never going to do a Lakota Sioux sweat lodge. The entire concept of excessive heat, excessive humidity, drumming, and chanting. Not going to do that again. One and done. Never going to do that again. Not going back to Mexico City, because the last time I was there on a business trip, we had to hire armed guards. Okay, so those are some things on my bucket list. What might be a thing or two that you just have zero interest in, or you're just like, nope, never going to do that or eat that or whatever?
Bungee jumping, it's a never.
Okay, that's one that's a high on a lot of people's lists. That's good. I'm not doing that one either.
Abseiling, it's also a never. I'm very adventurous. I will do zip lining, but not abseiling.
Okay.
No Marmite for me. I'm not sure if you know what Marmite is.
What's that? I'm not familiar.
It's a spread that's made with a dark stock, I think. You put it on your bread. It's got a meaty flavor, but no Marmite for me. No Brussels sprouts for me.
All right, Virginia, that's a good one. We'll wrap that, because I've got kids and family members that Brussels sprouts would just be on that list. Fantastic. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to tell you this, the next time somebody talks about a bucket list, you're going to remember our conversation, right? Because there's an opposite.
Yes.
And actually,
Yes,
I always
definitely
share with people, one of the best interviews I've ever done is with the Bucket List Guy. And literally that's his website, the Bucket List Guy. He is Trav Bell down in Australia, and what a character. And we had a really good conversation. So if you ever have a chance to talk about bucket list, he just talks about a purposeful life. And it looks like you've really put that together. So we're going to call that a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for coming on. It's been great to hear your story. Can't wait to share it with the world and the universe that I cover. And so thank you, Virginia. It's been fantastic.
Can I just leave one last thought?
Yeah, absolutely.
Rex, and hoping that it will touch someone's life that will hear this. I heard a quote once that what's right with you is the starting point, and what's wrong with you is beside the point.
Ooh,
so
I
focus
like that.
on what's right.
What's right with you
Is the starting point.
is the starting point. What's wrong?
It's beside the point.
That's great.
I just love that, and that is how I live my life. I focus on what's right.
That is awesome. Fantastic. Well, listen, folks, we're glad to have everybody listening in today. Do you have a website that we can share real quick for folks?
Website is still under construction, Rex, unfortunately, but I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter as Virginia Solomons. And then on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram as Virginia Solomons. And on Twitter, I'm Blue-Eyed V.
Okay.
Because I'm called Blue-Eyed Girl.
So, folks, we're getting a little bit of technical issues with some bleed in, bleed out. So, Virginia is on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram under Virginia Solomons, correct? Fantastic. All right, Virginia, that's great. Folks, thanks for listening in. Do not forget to stop by the website, therexandrershow.com. More information about Virginia, links. We'll look forward to her new book. We'll get her back on and talk about that. I can't wait to hear her podcast when she gets that up and rolling. And so we'll call it a day. So I'll say the things I always say to everybody. Be safe, but be bold, and make it a great day.